Welcome to the show, Cherries fans and Premier League fans, and thank you for joining us for our Up the Cherries in all departments AFC Bournemouth season review. Of course, I do have Mr. Matt Harrison next to me. How you doing, Matt?
Yeah, well, good, Craig. Thank you. Yeah, lovely.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. And also, we've got a special guest, and that special guest is Paul Belverstone, of course, journalist and a Premier League expert. How you doing, Paul?
Honoured to be here. Thanks ever so much for the invite.
Not a problem at all. It's our pleasure. So, shall we get stuck straight into the show?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, far away.
Okay, so as I say, it is the AFC Bournemouth season review of the 23-24 season. So let's have a look at how it all started out. So at the end of the 22-23 season, we said goodbye to a cult hero in Jefferson Lerma. Have we missed him, Paul?
He certainly left a big hole, didn't he? There was no natural replacement in the squad. And then Tyler Adams came in to fill that hole, and we've just not seen anything of him. I've been very impressed the way the Cherries have reacted without a natural defensive holding midfielder. You know, Lewis Cook, Ryan Christie have done a fabulous job in there all season, really. So, yeah, I thought it was going to be a much bigger problem than it turned out to be, I suppose is the best way I'd put it.
Fair enough. So, Matt, have you got anything to add to that?
No, not really. I mean, it's again very similar to what Paul said. But in terms of the season that Cook and Christie has had, in some ways, for me, we kind of haven't missed him. But it was definitely a worry at the beginning of the season.
Of course. And of course, the club made a big footballing decision in relieving head coach Gary O'Neill from his duties at AFC Bournemouth. Of course, I was quite critical, but everybody's heard my opinions. Matt, tell us yours.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back on it now, there's the club made the right decision, in my opinion. It was harsh to sack Gary in some respects, but football's football, and he's not the first manager to go after having a fairly decent season at a club. So for me, it was the total right decision.
And then, of course, Andoni Iraola was the coach of choice to come into Dean Court, and a surprise arrival in the summer. And the head coach believes attack will prove the best form of defence. Paul, was you surprised when Iraola came in, because he was quite sought after by a number of clubs, including Leeds United, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He'd been close to a move to England before. I was hugely surprised. I thought Gary O'Neill did everything that was asked of him. I thought it was harsh. It was ruthless, I think, is perhaps the word to use, because sitting here now, it's been proved absolutely 100% the right decision. Andoni Iraola, I didn't know very much about him at all. Looking into what he'd done at Rayo Vallecano, the phrase that popped up a few times was his style of football being chaos but fun. And that sounded quite exciting to me at the time. So, yeah, I was really looking forward to seeing what he'd do to this squad.
Excellent. Well, this was one of the statements as well. Sometimes we make the mistake to think that if we play high, you are worse defensively, the former right back said. My idea is exactly the opposite. As a coach, I feel safer when we are far from our box rather than the opposite, And that was from Iraola when he first took the job. Now, watching Iraola training and tell the assistant coach and the former Bournemouth defender Sean Cooper about his pressing methodology, made insightful viewing, said, if I start going backwards and you say stay behind, we're dead. We will never recover the ball. Whose front foot philosophy is born from 2 years playing under Marcelo Bielsa. And of course, I did do a very, very special interview with Mikel Xtari. That was back in the summer, before Iraola took his first game and it was quite an interesting insight into Basque management. So, of course, Ixari has also been responsible for Xabi Alonso, Julian Lopetegui, Unai Emery, Mikel Arteta as well. So it's a very, very interesting one to watch. So do watch that straight after as well if you haven't already. So, of course, the summer transfer window in pre-season was upon us. Justin Kluivert was signed from Roma, a transfer fee of 11 million euros plus 1.5 million euros in add-ons. The next player to come through the door was Milos Kerkez, an attacking left back, and he was signed from AZ Alkmaar for 15.5 million pounds. Then Alex Scott joined, highly rated England under-21 international, and he was signed from Bristol City for 25 million pounds. Max Aaron's also joined. He's a right back, and he put pen to paper to become a Cherry as Bournemouth paid Norwich £7 million for his services. Finally, Radu signed on loan from Inter Milan with a view to moving to the Cherries full time. And I said finally, but we did have some more good news in Tyler Adams, who was already mentioned. He put pen to paper on a deal worth 20 million to Leeds United to become a Cherry. And then he was shortly followed by his colleague at Leeds, Luis Sinistera, who signed on loan, only for the Cherries to make it full time, paying Leeds United £20 million. Romain Faber signed for 15 million from Lyon, but was loaned straight to Lorient. And Hamid Traore made his loan move permanent. So the big question is Paul, what did you think of the activity coming in? Because it was the most we've ever spent as a football club in a transfer window. Was you A, surprised, and B, what did you make of the players? Were they exciting, did you feel, at the time?
I suppose I was surprised. Like you say, never seen Bournemouth spend that sort of money before. It's a strange, football's in a strange place when you can look at all these signings being between sort of 10 and 20 million around there and thinking none of them are guaranteed to be wonderful signings. There is a bit of a gamble in that price bracket now, which just shows how nuts the game has become. But looking at it now with the benefit of hindsight, I think there's still a lot of unknowns. You've got players like Tyler Adams, Alex Scott, Romain Faber haven't played virtually at all. Alex Scott, I think, is it 10, 11 starts, something like that. He's exciting for next season. Milos Kerkez, I think, has done well at left back. He's so very young. There's plenty more to come from him. And Justin Kluivert, we're all excited by the name. We knew the name. I admit I didn't know anything about him himself, just his dad. So I think if you look at it overall, and what does it add up to? About 80 million, 100 million pounds. There are some big hits in there, the likes of Kluivert. There are some exciting signings to come. Good. The fact that Alex Scott has got a bit of experience this season really will stand him in good stead next season. We know Tyler Adams, captain of America, he's going to be a good player. He just needs to be fit. So, yeah, it was a very exciting summer at the time, but I think actually it's more exciting for next season even.
Excellent. Well, I am going to introduce a new signing for us as well, coming for this coming season, and that person is Anna Doran. How are you doing, Anna?
Hi. Yeah, really good. Thanks. How are you guys?
Yeah, all good, all good. Of course, the AFC Bournemouth pre-season 23-24 training camp was held in Marbella in Spain. Chris Metham, Kiefer Moore, Ryan Christie and Dango Tara all got their first taste of training under Iraola after their extended summer break after international involvement. And youngsters Ben Greenwood, Owen Bevan and Dominic Solanke all travelled with the first team squad. So there was a number of pre-season friendlies that we played over in Marbella. The first one was the 4-0 demolition of Hibernian. Maccabi Tel Aviv actually beat us 1-0. We beat Southampton, as we should do, 3-2. And Atlanta got the better of us, a 3-1 defeat. And of course, back home at Dean Court as well, which the Atlanta game was as well. I should correct myself. We had a 2-0 win against Lorient. So, yeah, there's some good pre-season friendly games in there as well. So there was a number of players sent out on loan and sold. Mark Travers went to Stoke City. Will Dennis went to Kilmarnock. Roman Favre went to Lorient. James Hill went to Blackburn Rovers. Jamal Lowe had a season-long loan at QPR. Jaden Anthony surprised everybody by going on loan to Leeds United, but that was part of the Sinistera deal. And then Shriki Dembele was sold to Birmingham City for £1.7 million. What did you think of the players leaving? Were you disappointed with, say, for example, Jaden Anthony, Anna? What did you make of that?
Yeah, Jaden's been one of my absolute standouts over the last few years. But I think when Jay-Z left, he just didn't seem to find the right sort of place in the team. The two sort of worked so well, and he was showing some real good signs at the end of last season of just being able to slot back in. And yeah, I was really sad to see him go, actually. But bringing Sinistera in, part of the deal, and I think that's worked out quite nicely as well.
Definitely. Well, let's get to the season review and, of course, what matters, the Premier League. So let's start off with the first 9 games. I'm going to breeze through these and then we'll cover them all off in one because, of course, it wasn't the greatest of starts. It's not what Iraola would have wanted. So let's just run through them. So, of course, there was the 1-1 draw against West Ham at home. Dominic Solanke goal getting the equaliser for ourselves. Then we went to Liverpool, a 3-1 defeat. But we did take the lead in that game. Antoine Semenyo scored after 3 minutes. Spurs were the visitors to Dean Court, and unfortunately a 2-0 defeat. Brentford 2, Bournemouth 2 up at the G-Tech. Quite a memorable game, actually, but there was some shoots of promise there. The 0-0 against Chelsea. And then Brighton beat us 3-1. Again, we were in the lead before Brighton come back. The Arsenal 4-0 defeat at home. Less said about that, the better. And Everton 3, Bournemouth 0. We was getting a little bit worried at that point. And then finally, Bournemouth 1, Wolves 2 against former manager Gary O'Neill. So, Paul, what did you make of those first 9 league games? There was some calls for Iraola out, me being one of them, and me being a bit short-sighted. That's why I'm not a football chairman, I'm glad to say. But what was your thoughts?
I thought the fixture list was very harsh, a very, very tough start. And then after, say, Liverpool and Spurs, you mentioned it there, that things did seem to be improving. You could see a bit of progression. The draw at Brentford, that should have been a win, really. Was it a last-minute equaliser? The draw at the Vitality against Chelsea, there was lots of good stuff in there. It was the Everton one that really started making you fear the worst, because that was when the season was supposed to start. You looked at the fixture list and you thought, okay, it's very tough. I can see a reason why we're not going to see the Cherries get any points from those. But Everton, right, that's where we can really sit. And it just fell completely flat. It was the lowest point of the season, really. Everton had lost, I think, 4 in a row at home at that point. They seemingly couldn't score on their own patch. And then a couple of defensive lapses and a poor punch by Neto. It could have been 4 or 5, really. So that's where things did look a bit bleak.
And of course, there was rumours that the axe was about to swing if the Cherries failed to beat Burnley. Of course, both Neto and Darren Randolph suffered injuries. Mark Travers was recalled, and Radu came in to make his debut. But beat Burnley we did. And for anybody who remembers, it was 1-1. We went 2-1 up. And then there was that moment, 7 minutes of VAR hell, where we didn't know whether or not Jay Rodriguez had equalised.
Certainly wasn't a moment.
No, it wasn't a moment. I tell you what, it was. And I tell you what, Iraola must have been sweating at that point. Anna, I'll come to you first. If Jay Rodriguez's goal had counted, seeing as Bill Foley was at the game and there was rumours and there was thoughts beforehand, do you think Iraola would have got the boot?
Do you know what? I am just not sure I can say for definite, because I feel like Foley's come in with such a long-term strategy. He's talked so much about the next few years, the next 5 years where he wants to be. I'm not sure. And I know you've obviously gone through all the draws and the losses that we had, but they were such exciting games to be at. Like, you could see the progression, you could see the build of the tactics that they had, and it just wasn't quite right, but it was so nearly right that I think I would have been really surprised if he had just decided to get rid of him at that point.
And Paul, what did you make when that result finally come in? How much of a weight off Iraola's mind would that have been?
Oh, it would have given everyone at the club an enormous lift, the dressing room, because, you know, it's all very well being able to see progression and okay, this feels like we're going down the right path. If you're just not getting that 3 points ever, then doubts are going to creep in. To answer the question you gave to Anna, Bill Foley's been absolutely adamant. Iraola was never in danger. He was completely convinced. He could see the progression. He had firm belief in him. And I've spoken to Iraola himself. He said that Bill Foley's biggest credit, if you like, is that he is always acting the same around the first team squad, whether they're winning, losing. And in that moment, there was nothing but positivity, nothing but conviction that they were going to do well together. And yeah, there was 7 minutes of VAR hell, but what elation when that final whistle was blown.
Yeah.
Oh, such relief. And then, of course, everything went right. It was just as if you click your fingers and everything just fell into place. I think we're going to enjoy this. Not this game in particular, the 6-1 defeat against Manchester City away from home. But you kind of expect that, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I was just reminding myself of that fixture, and it was horror.
Well, I tell you what, let's go on to something a bit brighter.
Yes.
But Paul, this was probably the moment I thought, and everything was perfect this day. Everything that Iraola did in this 2-0 win against, of course, Sir Eddie Howe, God, whatever you want to call him, was perfect, wasn't it?
Absolutely. We have liftoff that day. It really was phenomenal. Look, Newcastle weren't at their best. They had a lot of injuries. They'd just been bruised in the Champions League as well 3 days earlier. But, you know, Bournemouth absolutely dominated that game. Dom Solanke, tremendous. 2 goals from him. I think 3 points above the relegation places after that game. And yeah, absolutely everything you could have wished for, really, that day. Although Semenyo could have had a hat-trick. So, yeah, if you want to be really greedy, it could have been better. But 2-0 against Eddie Howe, having given him a lovely reception when he walked out, of course, that was ideal.
Yeah, definitely. Then we had a game against Sheffield United away from home. Of course, Sheffield United already looking like they were strugglers. What did you make of that, Anna?
Oh, I loved it. It's been one of my favourite away days this season. It was just brilliant atmosphere, brilliant tactics. It was so disappointing to concede right at the very end. But it just didn't matter. It was just, yeah, it felt like we had really arrived, despite Sheffield being obviously Sheffield and not on form. It was, yeah, tough competition, but we were just amazing that day.
Yep, we were. And then, I tell you what, Paul, we was amazing in this 2-2 draw against Aston Villa. Of course, on fire Aston Villa, as they've shown all season long, that, you know, really, we could and should have beaten them that day.
Yeah, I'll tell you, someone who wasn't amazing that day was Ollie Watkins. He was quiet throughout the whole thing until the 90th minute, and he pops up with a brilliant header.
Yeah.
And it virtually spoilt my son's birthday. He's a big Bournemouth fan. It had been his debut for his football club that morning, and it had gone well. And we were listening in the car on the way back. And I think we got home just in time to see Watkins' header. So, yeah, I will never forgive him for that.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, he has a good Euros. But we then went to Palace and Selhurst Park, a place that, you know, to be honest, gives us nightmares because we haven't got particularly a very good record there. But Anna, this was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you know what? This is one game I actually didn't make it to this year. But what a result. Yeah, what a result.
Yeah, definitely. And then we had, and Paul, you've got the pleasure of talking about this one, the 3-0 win against Manchester United, probably one of the most famous results in the club's history now.
Absolutely has to be, doesn't it? It's, you know, there have been moments against Manchester United in the past. I think 2 home wins in the Premier League, the Harry Arter game, Joshua King scoring in a 1-0, and was there a 2-1 in there as well with Junior Stanislas as well? But to win at Old Trafford, United aren't the force that they were perhaps in the past, but, you know, forget that. They finished 3rd last season. They were fully expecting to roll over little old Bournemouth, and I'm not sure I've ever seen a more complete performance. It 3-0 flattered Manchester United that day. Absolutely sensational. A truly, truly great day. And, you know, Iraola's name is forever etched in history now, surely.
To be honest, it should have been 5, shouldn't it, really? And, you know, an absolutely memorable day. There was a lot of talk, wasn't there, Anna, after this game? That, you know, of course, Manchester United, they were under par. They played really poorly. But that is doing us a disservice because we played so well.
I do feel that has been the mantra on Match of the Day this year. It's always how badly the other team were performing, how under equipped they were with their, you know, injuries, and I just feel that has just completely undermined us, because at some point someone's got to say, actually, these guys are playing like this all the time. It's not a fluke from all these other teams. And I was just really disappointed not to hear more praise for Andoni and the team.
Yeah, definitely. Well, of course, after that game, we had a 3-2 win up at Nottingham Forest. We did it again. It was, you know, it wasn't enough doing it once. We had to do it again. And of course, a 3-0 win against Fulham at home on Boxing Day. Both of these games were really, really good, Paul, weren't they?
Oh, stunning. I mean, look, the 3-2 at Forest wasn't quite as dramatic as the one a year earlier, but it was still wonderful. You know, lots of talk there. Anna mentioned, you know, all the talk is always about the other team. The talk here was dominated by the Bolly red card, which did seem harsh. But Bournemouth always beat Forest, so why is anyone surprised? And you know, the Fulham game, Fulham were top half. They were talking about pushing for Europe and all that sort of thing. And then what a Christmas present, a penalty. Who knew Bournemouth could win penalties? It's been 3,000 years since the previous penalty.
Do you know what? I'm pretty sure the last time I saw a penalty given was against Fulham in the Championship. And That's probably not correct, but it feels like it was that long ago. Yeah, what a game.
I think you might be correct, actually, but honestly can't remember before this game when it was definitely in the Championship. Though.
Fact check. It was, I'm pretty sure, against Fulham, North Stand, dying moments of the game. Just Dom Solanke, his composure with all of us behind him, in front of him, around him, screaming. I am pretty sure that's the last one.
Good knowledge.
There you are.
Oh, it's in my memory.
With it being Christmas, we had a panto villain as well, didn't we? Didn't Bernd Leno push a ball boy?
Yes.
Was that game?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It was a pretty hard shove as well. I was fairly close to it.
And an absolute stunner from Sinistera. That game had everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. And, you know, by far, it was a complete performance. Performance. And it showed how far we had come, you know, from that game against Everton to the game against Fulham. We was completely polar opposites. And luckily, it was the 3-0 team against Fulham that continued.
Yeah. Can I just say, isn't that Forest game? Was that the game? I was there and I've forgotten now, but Dom Solanke, that was his hat trick, wasn't it?
I think you might be right, actually. I think, yep, you are right on that as well, Anna.
Dom Solanke on the hat trick.
It was your stuff, Anna.
Well, I have to say, Nottingham Forest, just those games against them, I've just enjoyed so much. We just compete and they compete and we both want it. And that's what makes those games so exciting.
But it's always satisfying because we win them.
Definitely.
I'm upsetting all the Forest fans now. It's our season review.
Honestly, Forest away was incredible. They have an amazing fan base. They just did not stop singing the entire time. And that is not true of every stadium, certainly that I visited. So massive fan of Nottingham Forest. And I can't wait to go back next year.
Yeah. Well, we will
you haven't won them over. They still don't like Bournemouth. Sorry.
I'm trying.
We'll still beat them 3-2. We'll give them 2 goals, but we'll still score 3 against them. You know, that's what we do. But just before the start of the new year, we did have a defeat. So to sandwich in the new year, a 3-1 defeat against Spurs. To be honest, not a bad performance from memory. And then, of course, the 4-0 defeat at home to Liverpool.
Yeah, move on.
Let's move on then. So let's talk about the January transfer window and who come in during January. Well, we signed on loan from Getafe with a view to a permanent move, Enis Unal. Roman Favre's loan was ended and was recalled to the Cherries so Brooks could move to Southampton. Callum McKenna was signed from Queen of the South, turning down Manchester United in the process. And then, of course, 3 first-team stars sent out on loan. Joe Rothwell went on loan to Southampton. Kiefer Moore went on loan to Ipswich. And this is the funny one. David Brooks went on loan to Southampton. Let's start off quickly with David Brooks. Was you surprised, Paul, when he went to Saints?
I could see the logic in it. So perhaps not surprised, disappointed because I'm a big David Brooks fan, and not just because of the sentiment and everything he went through, which is, you know, extraordinary that he has come back and is playing at the level he is. But, you know, I just think he's got so much to offer. He's such an exciting player. I was at the Leicester game. Was it the Leicester game? The Swansea game, where I thought he was absolutely terrific. And as someone who works in the Premier League and lives on the South Coast, and apologies to everyone, I do want Southampton to come up just for work reasons. I'm sort of disappointed that they haven't used him and managed to get the very best out of him. I think he should be the best player in the Championship because I think he's very much a Premier League player. So I'm hoping that he comes back to the vitality in the summer. hits the ground running and earns a regular place, because I think he's a tremendous player.
And of course, Enis Unal coming as well. Anna, what did you make of him?
God, I'll be honest, I had nothing at all on him when he arrived at all. And what a player he's turned out to be. He makes such a difference when he's on and just takes the chances. You know, watch some of the players sometimes stuttering, not taking the shot early enough, and it just sort of losing the momentum a little bit. But I am really pleased to see him, you know, taking those shots on when he can. And yeah, I'm looking forward to him starting a bit more regularly next season.
Definitely, definitely. Well, let's have a look at the cup games. Of course, we had a bit of a cup run in the League Cup. We played Swansea in both cups. The first time round in the League Cup, we beat them 3-2. We then beat Stoke 2-0, and then, of course, went out with a Nunes, well, wonder strike, to be honest. Nobody realised he could do it. A very wet and windy Dean Court that night. Conditions didn't really help either side. In the FA Cup, beat Queen's Park Rangers 3-2 at Loftus Road. The 5-0 demolition of Swansea. But, of course, we did get beat by Leicester City at home after extra time. Anna, what did you make of the cup runs and the FA Cup run? Are you a bit disappointed by it?
I was, but I watched the goals for the Swansea game on telly in Welsh, actually, which was interesting. And I just thought we looked amazing. David Brooks, I think, scored.
Yes,
two goals maybe. Yeah, it was just absolutely outstanding. And I thought, considering we have players who, you know, I guess in the cup runs, there's not necessarily the first team players all the time. I thought it was a really good opportunity for all of the players to shine. And 5 goals was just incredible. And most of them in the first half.
All of them,
All of them, was it? Yeah, it was just so impressive. So I was so disappointed to lose 1-0 to Leicester. I thought we had a really good chance with the cup this year, a really good chance. And, you know, maybe on hindsight, it's better that we went out so that we can concentrate on the league. I know there's always that argument because things started to turn around after that. But it's just such a disappointment. I love a good cup run.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, let's have a little look at the games as well after. So we drew 1-1 against West Ham at the London Stadium, and of course a 1-1 draw against Nottingham Forest, where we did see red as well. Paul, what was your verdict of these 2 games? Because of course we had 2 defeats in the league just beforehand. Was it a case of, you know, to stop that a little bit of bad run of form, or, you know, some doubts maybe creeping into the players' heads?
I think it's one of those where, unless you're in the top 2 in the Premier League, you're never going to find consistency throughout. And this was a little bit of a blip that, you know, like you said, 2 defeats and then the 2 draws. The 2 draws were pretty much forgettable. The West Ham game, I was at that, and I remember Calvin Phillips having a horrid debut.
Yes.
Not much else to report. James Ward-Prowse, I think, got the equaliser. Of course, Dom Solanke scored. The Forest game, yeah, very forgettable. It was a bit of a naughty challenge by Phil Billing. I remember Nuno saying afterwards, there are other ways to stop the play. There are better fouls you can do, rather than, you know, it looked like it could be quite nasty on Morgan Gibbs-White, I think it was, that he sort of caught his ankle. But, you know, if you're coming through games like that and getting points, and the other thing about the Forest game actually is that, you know, we had no idea of this at the time, but that Forest game put the Cherries onto 27 points. That was enough this season to stay up. So to secure survival in early February, particularly after those first 9 games, blimey, no one would have seen that coming.
No.
And then, of course, straight after that, we had the 3-1 defeat at Craven Cottage, but then followed by a 2-2 draw up at Newcastle. 2 tough away days, but we got a decent point against, of course, Sir Eddie.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
I love that game. I loved that game. It was fantastic to watch. I think the real privilege of being up in the gods at Newcastle is that you get that bird's eye view and you can see the formations, and it was absolutely beautiful to watch. And it's the first time, other than watching on the telly, that you can really see that level of detail and how they're coming together and the space that they're creating on the wing. It was a brilliant game. Gutted to come away with a draw, actually. I can't remember who scored to equalise. Was it Dan Burn?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just so unlucky right at the end. I think we deserved to win that game, but I think when we play Newcastle, always, if you can't win it, just don't lose it to them. It's nice.
Former Cherry Matt Ritchie scored the equaliser.
Oh, it was Matt Ritchie. Sorry. Oh, even more disappointing.
More galling.
I remember he did that against us at Dean Court, didn't he? Quite a few years back. If I'm right in thinking, was that? I'm trying to think. Is it 2019? He did that at Dean Court.
Yeah, may well have been.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we did play Manchester City at home. A 1-0 defeat, but to be honest, it was, even though a defeat, it was a fantastic performance. But then we went to Burnley and got a 2-0 win, meaning that we'd done the double over the Clarets. Paul, what did you make of our game against Man City? Because there was chances where we could have got a result out of them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first half, I thought the approach was borderline reckless, leaving big gaps, and City seemed very keen to exploit them. And at half time, you sort of thought, blimey, this could be anything. It could be any minute before they rack up another 4-5 nil scoreline. The second half was absolutely sensational. We'd seen it in the QPR game, I think, having been 2-0 down, where Lewis Cook was suddenly playing centre-back. He did that against Manchester City as the champions were pretty much camped in their own penalty area for most of the second half. It was truly extraordinary. It was one of those games where you come away as a fan or as a neutral or whatever, and you think, blimey, there's so many positives from that. How unlucky not to get anything. The players and the staff, I can tell you, were spent. That was the main reason the Leicester game went away 3 days later, because the manager said afterwards, we're going to pay for this on Tuesday. And the fact they had to play 120 minutes against Leicester was particularly cruel. But that second half performance, I've never seen Bournemouth play the champions of England like that before. That was really, really fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, the Burnley game, away from home, Anna. It wasn't the best of games, was it? But we did what we needed to do.
And I think we hear this, don't we, time and time again, when these big clubs scratch out their results. And I felt like that's what we were doing. We pulled it out of the bag and we kept going. And I think that just, boring game, but what a result. Semenyo. Oh.
Yeah. They kept inviting him. Go on, have another go. And then in the end he did.
How many do you want?
But what a save from Neto in there as well. How that didn't win Save of the Month, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, we had Sheffield United at home, a 2-2 draw. Probably a little bit disappointed in the end. We got a decent result. Should we have been beating them quite? I think we should have been out of sight personally. But at the same time, from being 2-1 down, a respectable point.
A few days early, they had been absolutely wretched at home against Arsenal, hadn't they? And it looked like they'd given up. They clearly got a rocket, and Bournemouth were on the receiving end of their reaction. Although, did Dom miss a penalty at 0-0 in that game, I think? So
that was where he slipped, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. So it could have been very different. He had a goal disallowed or ruled out by VAR as well. But it was the start of comeback week. What a memorable week.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And I'll tell you what, let's go on to that comeback. And 4-3 against Luton Town. We was 3-0 down. Of course, it was already an emotional game because, of course, the game should have been played back in December. You know, of course, it was played. And then there was that terrible moment when Tom Lockyer did collapse to the floor, and a very, very scary moment. Firstly, Anna, it was quite an emotional night that night, wasn't it? After what we witnessed in December.
Yeah, and I think big shout out to all the staff from both sides that dealt with that. I can't even put myself in their shoes really, but yes, it was a game that I did wonder if our kind of sentiment might take over, but at 3-0 down, I'm not going to lie, I thought we were done. I thought we'd come back. I didn't think we would win. And I just can't get over what tenacity those lads have to play like that, and to the dying seconds as well. They just did not give up. And Semenyo, just incredible. Absolutely incredible again.
And Paul, we've won the award for comeback of the season a second year in a row. But this was something remarkable, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
It really was. I mean, there were some lovely touches. I did wonder if the generosity had spread a bit too far after putting Tom Lockyer on the front of the programme, which was a lovely touch, after paying for the supporters of Luton's coach fares to come down. Another lovely touch, letting them go 3-0 up at half time, perhaps a bit, a step too far. But I've never heard the vitality like it second half. You could see, I think it was about the hour mark when Dom scored that remarkable goal. And they still had a 2-goal cushion, but you could feel the momentum was changing. And the crowd clearly could feel that, because they got louder and louder. And then, Zaba scored and you thought, can't happen, can it? And at 4-3, the roof was genuinely lifted off the place. It was extraordinary. One of those games you'll never forget being there. And absolutely loved every minute of the second half.
Yeah, I think one of the amazing things this year, though, has been that playing to the last minute rather than sitting back like we have seen at other games where, we'll just protect what we've got and not going for it. And I just didn't get a sense of that at all. I didn't get a sense of one moment that they were going to stop playing and just sit back or anything. And I think that's been true of so many games this season. Even when we've lost, we have not given up, and that's been such a difference, I feel.
Well, I did say to Matt at half time, when we were 3-0 down, I said, and to be honest, it was jokingly, I said, we're going to win this 4-3. I didn't actually mean it, because I didn't have a bet on it. If I had a bet on it, I would have probably gone, I didn't mean that, but yeah.
I'm getting memories of Liverpool the other year and us saying, no, it'll be 4-3, it'll be 5-4, and it never happened. But this time, it genuinely did.
It did. So, yeah, wish I had a bet on it. I would have been quite a bit richer. But these two games were really, really good games as well. The Everton win, of course, it was 1-1. They got a late equaliser, but Seamus Coleman did help us out and put it through his own net for a 2-1 win against the Toffees to get our own back for that game at Goodison. But also, we did the double over Crystal Palace. Who could believe it? This thorn in our side, we'd done the double over. And Paul, what did you make of these two matches?
So the good thing was in front of Bill Foley. He'd come over from Vegas. I'd been lucky enough to spend a bit of time with him, and hoped that we'd see a bit of a show. He was disappointed not to be there for the extraordinary Luton game. But yeah, I wouldn't say the Everton game was full of quality. They came to spoil things, but very dramatic late on. An extraordinary own goal, assisted sort of by Adam Smith on his 200th Premier League appearance for the club. And then Palace, I remember getting very wet and blown around that day. The weather was awful. Phil Bill hit the bar, I think. Eze had a goal ruled out. And this took Bournemouth past the 40-point mark. But the talk wasn't of, safety, avoiding relegation. It was all, come on, let's go for the points record. Maybe a top half finish. And I think that spoke volumes too.
There was also hints at this point of Europe, wasn't there, Anna? And we was dreaming, of Europe, be it for better or worse.
Well, I think it was a fair point at the time. The teams around us, we were all so close on goal differences. I think we had a game in hand. Brighton maybe 2 games in hand. There was real possibilities and belief. The belief. I mean, all right, a little bit far-fetched, but why not? Why not?
Exactly. It was a nice dream to have that we could be going to Moldova on a Thursday night. But hey-ho. But 2 disappointing games here for 2 contrasting reasons. Yeah. So the first one, the game against Luton Town, we were ahead in this game and we let them back in it. And of course, eventually they won. It was, a moment where they thought they had their tails up that they might have survived Luton. And it was a vital game for them. And then we played Manchester United off the park again.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of talking points. Of course, there was the penalty that shouldn't have been. We should have had a penalty. Paul, what do you make of it? Because I feel that we was really hard done by against United.
Absolutely, should have done the double over them. I thought it was a terrific performance. Solanke passed Joshua King's club Premier League record with his 17th of the season. Bruno Fernandes then equalised, but heads didn't drop at all. Kept pushing, went ahead again. Justin Kluivert, I think, and it all got rather silly after that, didn't it? Because the ball deflected up at Adam Smith from very close range, so straight away you think, well, that's one thing, and also the referee made a motion of him putting his arm out. I thought Adam Smith brought his arm in and actually tried to, make his body smaller, which is the opposite of what you should give a penalty for. But yeah, Bruno again slotted that away. And then, late on when Ryan Christie went through, he's fouled on the edge, yes, but the foul carried on into the area. And, Andoni, I thought, showed a lot of class afterwards where he could have been raging, but he was just talking sensibly about, hang on a minute, we've seen a lot of situations like this. Bournemouth got penalised earlier in the season where a foul went into the area and that was a penalty. So, VAR has been in the news way, way, way too often. I think Howard Webb's trying to do what he can to make it an open process with his show every month where he talks through the decisions and admits when mistakes have been made and things. But it's supposed to be there to help the game flow, to eradicate the howler, all these things. Unfortunately, it's the main talking point every weekend far too often.
Yeah.
It was, very, very, very frustrating. But like Paul says there, Anna, Andoni Iraola was... He doesn't seem to be the manager that argues. He doesn't stomp his feet.
No.
He just gets on with things.
No, I agree. I think he has he's just class, I think. And he has a way of putting things over, which we're all thinking. But like you say, without the foot stomping and without the sort of fist shaking. But I think he had every right that game to have done that if he chose to. But it doesn't get you anywhere at the end of the day. But yeah, what a disappointing result when we clearly played them out of the park.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been as calm as Andoni, I can assure you.
No.
But we went to Villa Park next, and a 3-1 defeat against Aston Villa. It wasn't a disgraceful performance, but at the end of the day, Aston Villa, of course, were gunning for that Champions League spot. And then we got revenge on Gary O'Neill by winning 1-0 at Molineux. How satisfying was that, Anna?
Oh, love it. I think it was 1-0 last year when we played them away there as well. And it's just the best. I like Gary. I really, really like him. But sentiment's gone.
Paul, it could well have been, though, 4 or 5 that night. We could have been even more clinical, couldn't we?
I think there's always going to be an element of that at the level Bournemouth are at the moment, isn't there? And you just hope that missed chances don't end up punishing you. And you know that has happened a few times this season. But overall, I suppose that is one of the kind of the mild regrets of the season. Not the Wolves game by any stretch, because that did end up being 3 points. But I think, because I did the Brentford game, and I think only Brentford had lost more points from winning positions, and I think Bournemouth lost something like 27 points, had gone ahead so many times, and I mean, it's almost frightening to think how good the season could have been if some of those leads had been held on to. But yeah, blimey, nitpicking now. What a season it's been.
It has. And this has got to be up there with one of the best performances of the season as well. Maybe not on the level of the Manchester United one, but again, fantastic demolition of Brighton. And we spoke after this game, didn't we, Anna? And I was buzzing, you was buzzing, we were all buzzing.
It was just fantastic. You had a little picture there of that number 9, and I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but he was just everywhere and trying to trip everyone up and really making it difficult, trying to get the foul. And it was frustrating watching him and the ref and the linesman not. I loved it. 3-0.
Amazing. Paul, what did you make of this?
I've seen a lot of Brighton this season and last season, and I mean, they were completely out of sorts. They'd made 7 changes, I think, for that game. And yeah, they looked like a team that had been sort of thrown together last minute. De Zerbi was clearly trying to make a point to his bosses, perhaps. But you know, from a Bournemouth point of view, who cares? Absolutely ruthless once again. It was, very, very impressive performance.
Then, of course, we went to the Emirates. Of course, Arsenal chasing after that Premier League title. A game again, which had lots of VAR decisions and decisions that went against us. Paul, I'll tell you what, start off. Was it or wasn't it a goal for us?
There wasn't a lot of contact, was there? People have said, oh, well, look at Dom wasn't looking at the ball, he was looking at the goalkeeper. I'm not sure about that. But look, we know if a goalkeeper, especially if he's in the air, you can't touch him. So it felt a bit harsh at the time, but it's one of those, at least you can grudgingly understand it. The penalty was disappointing for me. You know, Havertz has clearly bought that.
Yeah.
But just like Iraola said afterwards, look, Arsenal deserved the win. They were going for a big prize at the time and were clearly the better team, but it should have been a lot closer than 3-0.
Definitely. What we'll do is we'll cover off. I don't think we want to talk too much about this one, but the 2-1 defeat at home to Brentford. Again, a very, very frustrating day. Bad refereeing decisions, you could say. Should really Semenyo's goal be ruled out? No, I don't think so. But yeah, Anna, what did you make of that?
Do you know what? The best thing about that day was that I got to go to the football with my dad and actually sit next to him. And that's it. I was so excited to take him, to be with him. And it was lovely seeing him cheering the goals. But I just can't get over some of those decisions. It made me quite cross, actually, on that day. And I don't think it was particularly just those decisions. I think it's just been the build-up of decisions over the weeks that we'd had. And, yeah, I left feeling quite disappointed after that game.
Yeah, likewise. Likewise. And then we had the final game of the season, the 2-1 defeat against Chelsea, which concluded the season, finishing in 12th spot with 48 points. Paul, this wasn't a bad performance, really, was it? But, you know, and plus we've got our points, got the points record this year. To be honest, was it a disappointing end, do you think? Or do you feel that, you know, we did everything against the Chelsea side in form, really?
Oh, they're absolutely. They, you know, forget the top two. They're robotic. Chelsea over the last 3 months probably have been quite stunning, apart from a aberration at Arsenal 5-0. But no, they've been very, very impressive. They had something. They had a target in mind. They wanted Europe. They got there. Bournemouth have finished with 3 defeats, which is disappointing. But ultimately, having been safe, having got the points record, there is always going to be a question of motivation. Last season finished with 4 defeats, so this is another way of improving, only finishing with 3. Yeah, let's focus on the positives.
Definitely. Well, we did all vote for our player of the season.
Well, that's controversial.
Yeah, Dominic Solanke. There's a lot of players that could be in for this, and as you'll probably see in a second, we all kind of disagreed with each other.
We did, yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Here we go. Let's start off with Matt's selection. And Matt's players of the season. See, he couldn't pick just one, could he? Tough choice this season, but for me, I've just loved watching Ryan Christie and Justin Kluivert. Ryan has been an engine in our midfield this season and has adapted brilliantly to playing deeper. He wins the ball, he can pick out passes and create by running through the midfield, even though it has been a privilege to watch Dom get his goals this season. Kluivert, for me, has been outstanding in behind Dom and has contributed to goals as well as assists. And I feel there's a lot more to come from Justin next season. Hope so, Matt. Hope so. And his brother, Sam, was a little bit more... You know, he's only picked the one. He's only picked the one, which is good. Sam's gone for Dominic Solanke. His work rate is second to none. Gets around the whole pitch, which is unbelievable. Never gives up and thoroughly deserves his goals this season. A perfect season for Big Dom. And then, Anna, you've picked 3, haven't you? You know, to be honest, you've not been decisive either.
No, I wasn't. Absolutely echo everything about Christie. I think he has been insane. He's such a workhorse and just brilliant. Dom, for obvious reasons, I think him beating Josh King's record is just amazing. And you think how many goals were scratched off as well, where he could have been. I mean, that penalty miss as well, where he slipped over. It's just been an amazing season for him. But Zabarnyi, he's such a force at the back there, and just nothing is getting past him when he is on form. And he's just been lovely to watch at the back.
Well, I've gone for Antoine Semenyo. Let me explain. I didn't want to be left out here. I've picked somebody completely different. But why have I picked Semenyo? Well, firstly, I wasn't that excited when he signed from Bristol City at first. But what Iraola has got Semenyo doing is being consistent. He's been playing, absolutely fantastically on that side. His delivery is fantastic. He's chipped in with goals. He tracks back. He's tough. He's strong. He's an all-round player. And like I say, beforehand, when I spoke to Mark McAdam, one of the things was that Semenyo does sometimes blow hot and cold for Bristol City, and it's something that I brought up as well. But Iraola has got his consistency, and I think he has to be my player of the season. But I tell you what, you're not being left out of this. Go on.
Well, the vitality looks good in that picture, doesn't it? I think there have been a whole range of wonderful, consistent performances. I've very much enjoyed watching Ryan Christie buzz around the middle of midfield, being a right pest. I think he must be a nightmare to play against. Zaba being 21 years old, playing virtually every minute of the whole campaign. Only illness robbed him late on of one game or whatever. Semenyo, flashes of brilliance, and when he's been sort of his average level, that's still been very good. So, and Justin Kluivert, I think, has been very exciting. What a signing he's been. So yes, I've enjoyed all of those, but Dom Solanke scored 19 goals, 19 Premier League goals. Only Haaland, Palmer and Isak scored more than that in the whole of the Premier League. 21 goals in all competitions. That is truly remarkable. And yeah, I think it's very harsh to look past him and, all of his daft anime celebrations with his mask.
So there we are. Paul agrees with pretty much everybody that everybody's had a very good season, but Dom is getting the award. So there we go. But of course, Iraola was up for an award as well. The manager of the season. Now, should he have won it? Who wants to go first? Anna, do you want to go first? Go on.
Oh, see, obviously, I'm going to say, yes, he absolutely should have done. But the other contenders were so good for all their different reasons as well. And Pep, I'm not disappointed that he's got it. I think 4 seasons of having your team playing at such a high level, yes, but Andoni just, I think after where we were when we started this first 9 games, to turn us around like that, like you said earlier, something just clicked, didn't it? It was like a switch, and it was all okay from about November. So I think he did deserve it, and I'm not being biased there.
Well, what did you think?
It's been an absolutely wonderful story. Virtually every pundit pre-season had Bournemouth to go down, and then after 9 games, absolutely completely written off. So the turnaround has been extraordinary. I think I read this morning that since the end of October, since that 9-game run, Bournemouth's form has been top 4, which is just remarkable. I think it's something like only 5 or 6 times in the whole Premier League era that the manager of the title-winning team hasn't won Manager of the Year. And to finish top of the table, that means you are almost certainly Manager of the Year. I think if you were going to be a contrarian and go against Pep this year, and after making history, first time ever in English football in 135 years to win it 4 times in a row, if you're going to go against that, you've got to go Unai Emery. So a neighbour of Iraola, but not Iraola. I think it's been a tremendous season, but 12th, as much as it has sort of confounded the critics, it's not quite good enough to usurp the likes of Pep and Unai Emery for me.
No, fair enough. To be honest, I'll have my quick say on this, but, I think that Emery, is probably, it makes the most sense after what he's done with Aston Villa, but Iraola, I think, has got to be right up there. I think Klopp, was probably in there because of sentiment, final season. Arteta, if he won the league, he probably would have got it. I'm gutted Iraola hasn't got it, but I can kind of understand, what you said there, Paul, because it is the 4th time that Pep has won the Premier League in a row. It's not been done before. But yeah, Iraola should have won it. And, I'll make a small quick mention here as well. Instead of Klopp, I think Gary O'Neill could and should have been in that lineup for the job he has done at Wolves.
Yeah.
But there we are. We've mentioned it earlier on. The 4-3 win against Luton Town. We won the most improbable comeback award. There we go.
Retain the trophy.
Exactly. And do you know what? I'll take another one of those next year.
Yeah, I expect to see them in the trophy cabinet next time I go down. It's a great award.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it? It's not exciting at the well, I guess it is.
It was exciting at the time.
It is when it's in full flow, but you think at 3-0 down against Luton, you think, this is not going to plan, and then all of a sudden everything again just clicked, and yeah, it's a nice award to win, even though maybe the first half performance is one to forget. But let's come on to Lloyd Kelly, and he has announced that he is leaving the Cherries already, and there is a bit of a statement here as well. So 5 years ago, I became a Cherries player and stepped into the Premier League, something I wanted to achieve since the beginning of my career. A boy started this journey back in 2019, but now a man is closing this chapter with respect and the values that I hold close. Over the years, myself and everyone involved with this club has been on a similar journey, which has included a lot of happiness and success, but on the other hand, disappointment, and that's part and parcel of this game. Being able to captain this team back into the Premier League will always be one of the highlights of my time here. It was an honour to lead the boys out every week and be able to say at the end of the season, we done what we set out to do. Fast forward to this season and achieving our highest points tally in the Premier League just shows how far we've progressed over the years. I appreciate the love and support that you've given me throughout it all, and the relationships formed I'll always be grateful for. To the fans, there has been a lot of speculation around my future at the club, and I've left it in the background because I still had a job to do. One of the values I follow is to finish what you started. So I did that to the level I know it should be. I appreciate the support I had over the years, and I wish everyone at AFC Bournemouth the best in the future. And I tell you what, that is such a nice statement, at the end. And do you know what? I think Lloyd's done, Paul, I think he's been a fantastic player for this football club. Yes, he did have a little bit of a wobble, and I know that a lot of people have mentioned that wobble in the past, but that happens to all players, don't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think he's a tremendous player. Left centre back, left back. The Cherries have been a better team with him in it, and I think it is a shame that he's leaving. You can totally understand from the player's point of view the opportunity to become a free agent, but yeah, it'll be very interesting to see where he ends up. I think he could play for a very top club. So yeah, I hope he gets that sort of move.
And Anna, I know he's somebody that you've got a lot of time for.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I gutted seeing him play in different colours.
Absolutely, I will be. But I think, in a similar vein to someone like Nathan Ake, who, when he comes back, he is just so well remembered. And I hope that, people look at him on balance with all the positives and, the blip that people said that it was. Like you say, it happens to all of them at some point. And I hope that gets forgotten and some of the cruelness around that time gets forgotten, because I think that statement sums up him as a human being. He's a nice, kind man. He did his job that he came to do. And there are other players that have left us or known that they're leaving us and haven't fulfilled the job that they came to do. And I think that that's a big testament to the person that he is, that he's finished with those words. And I will absolutely miss him. And yeah, he will be, for me anyway, very well remembered as a good player, as a good captain, and as a good human being.
Well, let's look at the future and what the 2024-25 season will bring. But before we do that, very quickly, of course, we had 3 players go out on loan during the window. So during the January window, one has already been promoted with Ipswich Town. Yeah. The other 2 could be promoted with Southampton. And of course, don't forget Jayden Anthony. He's still at Leeds. So there's going to be some more promotions in there. How do you think it's going to go, that? Do you think it's going to be either Leeds or Saints coming up?
I'm going to this game. And
you're going to this game.
I am going to this game.
How have you been dragged into that, Anna?
Don't even ask. It's there's a lot of Bournemouth players on both sides, so I am looking forward to anybody winning. I have a lot of love for Jayden Anthony, and I would love to see him succeed. I think he's had a tough year. I would love to see him finish this year on a real high after everything he's been through this year. And I'm going for a Leeds win.
Fair enough. Paul?
See, Southampton have beaten Leeds both times this season, and I think this could be the one where that form was reversed. I can see Southampton being disappointed at Wembley, which, like I said earlier, from a personal point of view, for purely work reasons, I'd like Southampton to come up. I think it's fun when people start talking about derbies and things, even if there's not a huge rivalry. We have seen some fun games, particularly at the Vitality, between the two sides. So I'd like Southampton to come up, but I think Leeds might edge it.
Fair enough. Well, let's look at the future. And what is the future next season, 2024-25? Anna, I'll start with you. Is it Europe? Is it staying where we are this season? Is 12th an acceptable place?
Wow.
What is it?
Top half of the table. I think that is not unachievable. I think if we were playing the way we were playing at the start of the season, which obviously we didn't and everything, but if we start off as we mean to go on, we could have easily made it up there. And I think the way that the team are now, obviously we don't know who's coming and who's going just yet, but I can see top half of the table.
Excellent stuff. And Paul, can we make it to Europe? And what do we need extra because Bill Foley has come out and said that, that is eventually the aim. That's what he's gunning for. It'd be amazing to see European nights at Dean Court. What do we need extra to get there?
So the first thing is you need about 60 points, which seems a very big improvement on, is it 48 this season?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a lot of goals, a lot of clean sheets, a lot of consistent performances. And I think to try to target that next season is ambitious. Now, Bill Foley said that his mantra is set unlikely expectations and targets and surpass them. So, he's made it clear that he sees Bournemouth playing European football at some stage in the future. The big question mark over the summer is the future of Dom Solanke. If he were to depart, which, you know, there are financial implications, the profit and sustainability rules that are very strict these days. You know, it might mean that Bournemouth have to sell. Who knows? I hope that he's still there next season and he has another fantastic season. But if he were to go, that's an awful lot of goals to replace. And if he is to stay, need to add a lot more goals to what he provides already. So I think, you know, let's look for realistic steps. Let's target 50 points and above, a top half finish, and then see what happens with the rest of the teams. You know, if there is a nice little run of form at some stage that can see the Cherries sneak in there, happy days. Take that all day long. But to expect or to try to target Europe, I think is perhaps a bit too much.
I've got to agree with that at this moment in time. I think, you know, and plus it's a case of if we get there, we've got additional games, of course, player fatigue and injuries as well. I don't think we're quite ready yet, but never know. We might have those exciting nights to Moldova on a Thursday night. I know you'll be there, Anna. You'll be there, Paul. You'll be reporting on it. And yeah, I'll drag you over as well, Matt. I know he's in the background there as well. So yeah. But from us, thank you so much for joining us, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure, and no doubt we'll speak to you very, very soon.
Good stuff. Hope so. Thanks ever so much.
No problem at all. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember, hit the like, the subscribe, and the bell button to find out all the latest at Dean Court. Until the next video, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you very soon.